podcast episode 19, maybe. I've kind of lost track with these episodes, but as we already brought you on, Thompson, welcome to the show.
Yeah, we're happy to be here. It's good stuff.
And Thompson, you are located in Banff, Alberta, Canada. How is everything over there right now?
Yeah. It's pretty quiet out here. It's tough, when a tourism-based town, when tourism stops, it's pretty slow here. I think like 85-90% of people here are unemployed,
Wow.
just because everything is completely shut down. But yeah, it's pretty quiet, but still moving.
Wow. Now, what's the population? Do you know, like, a given total?
It's between like 8 and 10, depending on seasonal workers and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's I think about 6,000 people are probably out of work.
Wow.
Because of the shutdowns and everything. Yeah.
Wow. That's
now where exactly
started off
are you living?
Pretty sad. No, sorry about that.
Where in Banff are you from? Like, or living?
So I'm up Middle Springs way. Like I'm on sort of the other side of the river from I guess you'd call it like the town core. So it's mostly residential up where I'm at.
awesome. Okay, because as we may have mentioned before, and I might have in the past, but we saw some pictures. DJ and I went to Banff. We're actually rocking our shirts and on of you and your podcast and where you're at. So, or for the podcast.
Cody told me I had to.
I had to. It's something a little special to make you make us feel like we're part of Banff, even though we're halfway across the country, but or I guess continent at this point. But so we only have a little bit of exposure to Banff. We were there for 5.5, 6 days of that trip, which we saw it in the snowy, kind of chilly March. It was roughly like mid 40s, maybe got like the 30s one day. So we saw like a little bit of snowy, wintry mix. Other than that, it was clear, blue skies, perfect weather. But we did a decent bit of exploring in the town of Banff. We stayed in Canmore? Is that Canmore?
Yeah,
then,
Canmore, because I made that joke about Canless.
Oh, that's right. That's right. And then we went to the Yamnuska Wolf Dog Sanctuary, which is my shirt. And then, of course, the National Park, Banff National Park, we spent tons and tons of time in. So kind of help, I guess, DJ and I figure out where Middle Springs is. I'm guessing that's more into the interior of Banff.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a huge town, but yeah, in terms of if you're driving in along Banff Ave, it's sort of all the way at the end of that road towards. I don't know if you guys saw Sulphur Mountain.
Yep.
I know you checked out Tunnel, but yeah, so I'm near Sulphur Mountain versus closer to the highway.
Gotcha. Okay. And then you kind of told me before in the past, but what took you out to Banff? Because you're not originally from there.
No, so I'm originally from just outside of Toronto. Lived there pretty much all my life. Lived in Calgary when I was really young, but don't have too much memory of that. So I came out to Banff originally when I was on that road trip, that motorcycle trip that I met you guys a little bit later on. I have some family that live out here, so I got to meet them a little bit, spend some time. I spent maybe 4 or 5 days out in Banff, and just kind of fell in love. I knew I wanted to move out here when I was done my trip, and it didn't take me too long getting back to Toronto to start going crazy again and want to get back out here. So,
do you think it's just like between having family, the beautiful skies and mountains, and the adventure that's out there in Banff compared to Toronto, I'm guessing, or you just wanted to get away from the city life, or?
Yeah, I like the slower pace a little bit. I grew up in Toronto. I went to school downtown, and then went to university up in Montreal. So I've been in cities basically my entire life. But we'd spend, every summer growing up, we'd spend it up at my grandparents' place, which is up in the Muskoka area, sort of cottage country outside of Toronto. So I always really enjoyed, being outside. So once I was able to make this happen, it was kind of a no-brainer for me.
Of course. So we met Thompson, as I mentioned before the podcast. I started to get into it earlier, in Moab, Utah. We were told we were filming the documentary, Land of the Free Across the Country, and we were on our way back eastward stopped in Moab. We went to Arches National Park in the morning, and then some locals told us about that really cool waterfall, which is where we met you. It was kind of on the, I think it was like the northeastern side of town, a really small town there, and it was probably not even a mile hike up to this little waterfall there, where all those people were jumping off the little rope there and from the waterfall into that little hole there. I remember seeing you catching the jump there yourself. But where we met you was, you were where on your trip? You're doing this 2-month trip across Canada, America. You told us briefly about it, but fill in DJ and catch us up to speed on how that went the rest of the way.
Yeah, so after graduating, I spent a couple months painting houses to save up some money and bought a motorcycle. I'd ridden smaller bikes a little bit when I was younger, but then we bought this one. The first day I took it on the highway was day one of the trip. So I kind of went, straight into the deep end. But I spent 2.5 months just about driving. I went across Canada, out to the West Coast, and then sort of down through the States, down the coast of California, and then cut in and did Colorado, Utah, a little bit of Wyoming before cutting back across the plains and heading home.
That's what made you want to do that?
I knew I wanted to do some kind of traveling after graduating. I spent 5 years. I spent an extra year at school, so I was pretty ready to get out of there by the time my graduation rolled around. I always wanted to see Canada and North America, and I thought the best way to do it would be on the back of a motorcycle. I think it's just kind of a fun way to do it. Cost wise, it was pretty reasonable, and it's a good way to go if you're going by yourself.
And you did this during the summer, right?
Yeah, so I left I left the day before Canada Day, which is the 1st of July, and then hopped into the States, went across sort of the North Dakota, Montana, spent the 4th of July in Montana in Glacier National Park, and then went back up to Calgary and then Banff shortly after. So yeah, I left beginning of July and I got back mid-September.
It's quite the
I imagine biking in the winter, especially in the northern states, wouldn't have been too fun.
Yeah, no, I think I would have been pretty miserable. I've still got the bike out here in Banff, and the riding season is definitely shorter, but it's I still stretched it out. I made it into mid-November, couple squirrely rides with my hockey gear strapped to the back of the bike. The games.
That's probably the most Canadian thing you could say.
Yeah, well, I didn't have a car, so that's the only way I could get there.
Wow.
So, I've got a little ski rack I built for it too. So, but our spring season was sort of canceled, so I didn't get that out this year. But
right. Dang, man, that's crazy. So and to kind of still breaking into that, why did you want to do it by yourself? I know it's easier, it's less planning, less to rely on or worry about, but why yourself? I mean, most people would be scared to do it by themselves.
Yeah, I don't really know. I think I came onto the idea of wanting to do it on a motorcycle before I came onto the idea of wanting to do it myself, and then none of my friends ride bikes, so it just kind of ended up that I was.
No one wants to ride back seat?
No, there was not a ton of room. I had a huge camping backpack strapped to the back of it, with everything I needed in it. And so there was about a foot of space on the seat that I kind of stuck myself in. And there was, not a ton of room for passengers. But yeah, no, I was really glad I ended up doing it solo. It was, it's fun to be able to go at your own pace and that kind of thing. And, you enjoy a spot, you can spend a little bit extra time there. Or if you're not enjoying it, like a lot of the cities, I kind of didn't want to spend too much time there. So I was able to just sort of keep on my own kind of pace, which was nice.
That's awesome. And how many total states did you hit in the lower 48? I
think it was maybe 13. yeah, I think probably 13 states and then 3 provinces.
All in about 60 days. Damn, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it ended up being 72 days, just shy of 20,000 kilometers, which I'm not sure what that is in miles, but
Neither do we.
Terrible conversions. Terrible conversions.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, when you were talking about temperature earlier, I kind of have no clue.
Touche. So, what is probably one of the greatest takeaways that I guess that you had or can share from that experience?
I guess for me, it was just like nothing's ever as scary as you think it's going to be. And just to, it's all right to just kind of jump in. Like I said, I'd never really ridden bikes on the highway before or done anything like this, and going solo made it a little bit scarier during the whole planning process, especially my friends and family were certainly worried before, but once they sort of saw that I could, I was doing all right on my own and on the road, I think that sort of helped them. So yeah, for me, it was learning. You'll figure it out. The important part is just sort of starting.
Right.
How much of it was pre-planned? Like so when you set off, you got your bike, the very next day you hit the road. Did you have a plan of state by state where you were staying in each place, how long you were going to be staying there, how long the whole trip as a whole was going to be lasting?
Yeah, so I had a sort of rough idea. 2 months was sort of my goal, or at least what I had budgeted for. So it ended up being pretty shoestring budget on the last couple weeks of the trip. But yeah, it was roughly planned out. I mean, the first day I booked a hotel, or booked a motel reservation, and that was the only night of the trip that I did that beforehand, because I ended up booking it like 11 hours away and had to ride like way into the night to make it there. So I kind of learned my lesson on the first day, like just take it at your own pace and you'll figure it out. But yeah, I mean, stuff was planned. Especially in Canada, I was able to stay with friends and family. Like I sort of timed getting to Calgary with the Calgary Stampede, which I don't know if you guys have ever heard about that or anything, but it's just a huge party. It's a great time up in Calgary in the middle of summer. So
I was thinking it was going to be some kind of an animal migration or something.
No, I mean it's just a big rodeo party in downtown Calgary. So stuff like that I had planned, and sort of I had some friends in the States, of course all over Canada. So I let them know I'm on this trip, and I sort of gave them a heads up I might be there at this time. But it wasn't after that first sort of week. It was pretty sort of by the seat of your pants.
That's awesome. Man, I'm kind of inspired to do it myself now. I don't know about just hopping on a bike in one day and then going. So I think that's like one of the things that stuck out to me when I asked it the first time, just because how incredible of a feeling that must have been, like that adrenaline rush of like, hey, I'm just gonna jump on a bike and go, back myself, just go.
Yeah, it was good, but it was over pretty quick. I left on Canada Day long weekend, so I mean it's probably one of the busiest, same as 4th of July, busiest weekends of the summer. So stuck in stop and go traffic on the freeway, and then realizing I'm going to be in for a probably 13-hour day on my first day. The adrenaline wore off pretty quick, but yeah, I mean to be able to get out on the road on a motorcycle is like nothing else. It's awesome.
That's awesome. Definitely gotta put it on the bucket list. But well, that wasn't the craziest adventure from what I've followed your little journey on Instagram and everything. You recently hiked a very very interesting mountain, and I believe it was in Argentina. Correct me if I'm wrong. So tell us about that. I'm really curious to hear the story behind this and how it came to be, and who you went with, and how it was.
Got him.
Yeah. So since moving out here, I mean, I obviously love spending time in the mountains and climbing, skiing, that kind of thing. So I was last summer took a mountaineering course with one of my buddies from college. He flew out here. He lives in Toronto, but He was out here for the course, and he sort of, in talking about different mountaineering goals, he brought up Aconcagua, which is down in South America in Argentina, and that was sort of the next one on his list that he wanted to climb. It's one of the 7 summits, the highest mountain outside of the Himalaya.
Wow.
And so, yeah, he sort of talked me into it. We were staying up at one of these backcountry huts, and by the time we got to the trailhead, the end of the trip, he had talked me into it. So, yeah, we started the whole planning process and getting things sort of nailed down, booking flights and buying food and gear and all that kind of stuff.
You didn't just want to bike down to it?
Yeah, I always thought that'd be a pretty cool trip down, basically down the continent, but that's a little more involved.
It might be a little more dangerous.
Yeah, that would be one I wouldn't take on solo. I don't think. Some friends who ride.
So overall, how was it experience, and how long did it take from bottom to sea level to peak, or wherever you started at?
Do you know? Do you know roughly how tall it is?
I know in meters. I don't know in feet. It's
I'll do the conversion.
6,962 meters.
69,000.
62.
6,902.
Yeah, not 69,000.
You guys can keep talking.
Yeah. So we left. We took off the 27th of December, so 2 days after Christmas. I was leaving from Toronto because I was back home with my family for Christmas, and my buddy was leaving from Florida. He was down there, and we met in Mendoza, which is in Argentina. We got in late, so spent a night there, and then the next morning got up, bought, some of the stuff you can't fly with, so all of our fuel, and got our permits sorted in town, and then by that afternoon we were on a bus headed to Las Penitentes, which is a little ski town, or it used to be a ski town.
Okay.
It doesn't snow there anymore, so it's just kind of all decrepit, bit of a ghost town, honestly, but it's where you base, a lot of the guiding tour companies are based out of, or run, out of there. That's sort of their headquarters, close to the mountain. So we spent a night at the hostel there, and then got set up with some mules from one of the guiding companies. So they pack in 60 kilos of gear, and whatever else you put on your back, and it's about again, we're talking in kilometers here, but it's like a 30-kilometer hike in from the trailhead into base camp.
Wow.
And so we did that over the course of a couple days. There's sort of a midway camp, which we spent 2 nights in, just to spend a little time acclimatizing, do some hikes in the area, that kind of thing. And we got to base camp New Year's Eve. So it was a bit of a gong. We were pretty worked, but there were definitely people getting after it, all the people that had been there for a little while. Big party at base camp, which was kind of cool to see, but we were more focused on sleeping. It was a pretty long day to get there. But yeah, then from there, it took us, I think, 7 days to summit, which was a lot faster than we had expected. But we ended up, there was a short weather window, and it was a little bit quicker than we had planned on pushing ourselves, but it ended up working out, and we were able to make it. So
That's awesome. So what was the ratio of like sleep and hiking to resting, or lunch break to more hiking to turning in for the night? How do you differentiate throughout the day? I guess depend on the next piece of the hike to that day, or how does that work for something like this?
Yeah, so we were moving pretty quick the first couple of days, getting into base camp and that kind of thing, and part of that was we're still kind of fresh, and the air is, it's thinner, but it's not, it's not really kicking your ass just yet. But yeah, once you start moving up to the upper mountain, it's a lot more. It's a lot slower going. It takes a lot longer to do everything. You gotta above base camp. There's no running water, so you've got to boil, melt snow for everything. So you're making your meals, you're boiling bag meals. You've got to melt snow and do all that. So everything takes a lot longer. And the hiking itself was not too long. You'd spend maybe 3 or 4 hours pushing from camp 2 to camp 3 type deal.
Okay.
Not crazy long days, except for obviously our summit day, which was that was a very, very long day, but that's sort of to be expected.
And so how long did you stay on the summit? Did you just hike up, get your pictures and relax and then go back down, or did you spend like a day or so, or do some journaling, or?
No, so it was a pretty short visit on the top. It was so we summited around 9:30 in the morning, and we spent probably less than 20 minutes up there. I don't really remember. It's all kind of foggy because it was just such a, you're so oxygen deprived and worked. You haven't had enough food or water or anything all day. So we took some photos and had some water, but it was not we didn't spend a ton of time up there.
Right.
I got the height ratio, or the heights, because I feel like it's really important to like have that proper, frame of mind of how high he really is here. So I believe it's just a little bit less than 23,000 feet.
Wow.
And for a comparison, the highest point in the Rockies is 14,000.
Bravo.
And Mount Everest is 29,000.
Good on you, mate.
That's
pretty crazy.
It's big.
That's really high.
Big mountain.
So why this mountain? Did it just interest you, or?
It was mostly my buddy that sort of talked me into it. He's pretty stoked on the 7 summits. Like that's sort of his goal in climbing right now. He's done Kilimanjaro and then now this one. So that's sort of, I think, what he's focused on, and it's it seemed like a great opportunity to learn some expedition planning. We were planned to be on the mountain for 3 weeks. It ended up being shorter than that, but some expedition planning, and then learning how your body reacts at that kind of altitude in a relatively I don't want to say low risk, but sort of lower risk environment. It's not like you're in the Himalaya and it's ripping wind and crazy cold. It's still cold, but it's it's a little bit lower risk. It's not a super technical climb, so we were comfortable going without a tour company, a guiding company, and just sort of it's mostly trekking or hiking. It's not hardcore sort of climbing, mountaineering type. At least
how much training did you do before this?
Shane, do you mind if I see the map? Why can't I move? Can you guys move?
Ladder.
Oh, okay.
No, I never ended up using any of the masks or anything like that. I guess I was at a bit of an advantage because I'm at a little bit of altitude here. Not that, it's better than Florida, but it's not like it's not crazy high up here. Just getting out in the mountains out here, hiking, climbing, biking, whatever. Just trying to be active. I didn't have too much of a set sort of training regimen for it. I was definitely working out more than I typically do and more focused than I typically am. But the training it would have been good to do a little more. It was definitely, the summit day get out of me. It was very difficult, but
Was there ever a moment like like the week before when something just kind of flicked in you and you were just like, I'm not ready for this, or were you just the whole time you were just ready to go? You knew you were going to be able to.
No, it was the whole, like, basically 2 months leading up to it. I knew I was training, but I always felt like, I wasn't training hard enough. And, reading trip reports, and you never really know what it's going to be like actually there. And similar to the motorcycle trip, it's always worse in your head. So yeah, I think the week leading up to it, or that sort of time period, it actually went the other way, where it was like, okay, this is happening. You're doing this now. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. Gotta, like, it's just game on now.
It's the morning of a test that you didn't study for. You just got to face it one way or the other. You're going to get through it.
Exactly. There's no getting around it. There's nothing else you can do. It's just, time to go see.
Face it with a smile.
Exactly.
So after that, checkbox filled and the travel across the country, what's next on the list? And want to hike another mountain, drive across another country or continent? What's next in store?
I haven't really given it too much thought. I mean, it's always sort of in the back of your head. You hear about somebody that, put together a pretty cool expedition. You kind of think, oh, okay, I think I could do that, or that sounds kind of cool. That's something I want to, start building out a skill set that I could do that. But for me, I think the next big adventure will be up in Alaska. I've always thought it'd be cool to ride my bike up there, just to get a little bit more into it. Across the country, you're on. I mean, you can depending on how you go, you can spend all your time on sort of dirt roads, but it would take you way longer. But it's up to us, and then maybe on Denali. I know that's sort of where my buddy's head's at, and that makes sense as a good, like, sort of logical next step. Definitely a step up, but it's a reasonable next step for sort of mountaineering objectives as far as those go.
And what are the
now? What kind of bike do you have?
I ride a KLR 650, so it's like a dual sport sort of adventure bike. Not a ton of bells and whistles, but it's tough as nails, and it's hard to destroy it. So kind of works well for me. I'm pretty tough on things, but it's perfect for what I use it for.
Awesome. So you said you never ridden bikes on like the highway or interstate before. What did you have before? It's always like dirt bikes or just anything, just off-roading purposes?
Yeah. So my parents, they obviously didn't want me to get a motorcycle, so I was able to talk them into getting an enduro. So it was not street legal, but just like an old school heavy metal, like I think 78 250 cc's Kawasaki enduro. So really old, but still fun to rip around some of the trails, and then on the roads up at my grandparents' place. There's you can drive it around on the roads up there. So that's sort of how I learned to ride bikes, I guess.
Okay. So kind of taking a total different turn of things. So with COVID-19, how's it not only affecting Banff, but what about other areas in Canada? Because I know in the United States, we get the news, of course, and see it every day on Twitter and Google and Facebook and whatever all over the world, but not so much specifically Canada. So you told us a little bit about Banff. What about back home where your folks are in like Toronto and like a country as a whole? How are they all taking it?
I can't tell.
Yeah, so I think it's similar to the States. Some places are hotspots and some places aren't. Banff, we don't have many cases, but the sort of the name of the game is keeping people out, because we don't necessarily have the medical facilities to deal with a full sort of outbreak in such a small community. But then Toronto is, it's a big city, and it's pretty well shut down. Sort of same extent as some of the cities in the States. Um, but it seems like it's relatively quiet. Like it's not too crazy. Um, I have most of my buddies they've either been laid off or are working from home, and then one of my had to start going back into the office today. So it seems like things might be sort of slowly opening back up, but I mean, it's all going to have to be sort of playing it here.
Do you know if there's any kind of unrest starting to happen in Canada? Because I know here in the States, you're starting to see the protests of, opening everything back up or starting to open things back up, get the economy moving. Is there anything similar like that in Canada, or is everyone more or less okay with the status quo?
People seem to be taking it pretty well so far. I saw there was some, sort of protests in Toronto, in Queen's Park, but they didn't seem particularly well attended. So it seems like that's, I think we're sort of behind you guys a little bit in general in terms of the whole timeline of things. So maybe we're a little bit behind in terms of that unrest, but just sort of speaking from experience, I don't necessarily have my pulse on the city of Toronto, but it seems like that kind of stuff is not really taking place.
How long have you guys been on lockdown?
I think probably 6 weeks. Sounds about right. Maybe
Okay.
I know the town of Banff declared like a public emergency or a state of emergency. I think that was 6 weeks ago now. So.
And when Banff declared that emergency, I mean, just from what we saw, it's a really big tourist area. And granted, we came in March, which was probably a little bit least tourism compared to what was, I guess, maybe it was the same time into April. How did that affect people that were there? Did they just see like a big evacuation? Were there people that left town that are seasonal, or was it a big change, or was it kind of like just slowly, drastically along moving into it?
Yeah, so I think sort of now things have slowed down and we're where we're at, but I think the ski hills, the big three sort of ski hills out here, so Norquay, Lake Louise, and Sunshine, they were running up until the day after St. Paddy's Day, so till the 18th of March. Then they all shut down, and so the issue with that is because we're in the national park, the town is geographically restricted, so housing is tough. So a lot of employers have to provide staff housing, and so for example, Sunshine, their staff housing is all at the base of the ski hill, which is a 20-minute gondola ride from the parking lot. So because they couldn't have their staff in gondola, they had to shut down their staff housing, and it was a pretty shitty situation for everybody that lived there, where all of a sudden they have 3 days to vacate their homes.
Wow.
Essentially.
Wow.
So I mean, a lot of that resulted in people leaving town. If you're here for a season or two or whatever, you don't know. First off, you lost your job, and then you lost your house, and you don't know when you're going to be able to find a job or a house in town. It just sort of makes sense to go home. And then there's a lot of a lot of international workers here, Australians, people from the UK, that kind of thing. And I think a lot of people left town because they didn't know when they would be able to leave if they didn't leave sort of in the weeks immediately following those first sort of shutdowns.
So they went back to their home country, like Australia, like maybe like an Australian friend went completely home, or.
Yeah, so people, it's sort of hit or miss. Some people are staying here and they're gonna ride it out. That's people that have moved out from Ontario, people that are here from overseas, wherever. or and then some people have decided to go home. It's all just sort of based on the individual. But it did seem like in those early weeks there were a lot of people leaving town.
How are like the grocery stores like there? Like short on things, pretty well stocked, empty, crowded.
They've been doing an incredible job actually of keeping things stocked and keeping things safe in the grocery stores. Initially, there was, like I would imagine everywhere else, there was the run on toilet paper, and you couldn't find toilet paper in the town. But things have sort of mellowed out now, and I mean, sure, it's tough to find. There's not shortages, but something might not be in stock when you go that week, and it might be back the next. So it hasn't been like, we're running out of food. They've been doing an unreal job of keeping things, keeping the shelves stocked and keeping the environment in the grocery stores, the post office, that kind of thing, keeping it safe, for us, and then for, elderly people or people that are, have pre-existing conditions, that kind of thing, specific shopping hours and the kind of stuff that you've seen sort of all over.
Now, I know here in the States, it feels like the whole COVID-19 situation has caused a lot of people, just from like my personal experience, I've seen a lot more people out and about, going for runs, going for walks, all that kind of stuff. Coming from a place where that's, I would imagine, more or less the norm. Has there been any kind of a drop or a rise in people being outdoors in general?
I'm not too sure, because they've closed sort of most of the trails and that kind of thing, because it's harder to properly social distance on that kind of thing, on backcountry type trails, and then a lot of people have sort of understood, the people that get out and go climbing or go backcountry skiing, that kind of thing, they understand that doing that puts, if something goes wrong, you're putting an unnecessary strain on, search and rescue and the medical facilities. So a lot of people have dialed it back. If they were out pushing it before, they're not doing that now. But that's resulted in, a lot of people on the, paved trails and sort of the more approachable, I guess you'd call it, trails in town. But it's also been, pretty kind of miserable, maybe not miserable, but, still sort of winter. Up until, the past week or so, it's starting to warm up. So it'll be interesting to see as things start warming up, what kind of numbers we have on the trails and that kind of thing. But it's been reasonable so far.
That's good. Interesting. Yeah, no, because what's as for Banff? What did you say the population was again?
Between 8 and 10.
Okay, and what's the percentage of that seasonal? Or is that roughly all year round?
I think you'd be sort of in that 8,000, 9,000 range, sort of permanent residents, and then you get maybe a couple thousand seasonal.
Okay, and then what about Calgary? Because Calgary's the next closest biggest city, right?
Yeah, so Calgary's the big city nearby. Canmore is where you guys stayed. It's just outside of the park gates. I think they're a little bit bigger than Banff, but it's still a relatively small town. Right. And then Calgary itself, I'm honestly not sure. I don't have that answer. I know it's I want to say either a couple 100,000 or getting close to 1 million, but
wow.
Google's saying 1.336 million as of 2017.
Wow. Okay. All reason I was wondering is I wonder how many people travel to and from and commute to work or whatever it may be from Calgary or Canmore to Banff and vice versa. Do you know any people specifically that were doing that before COVID or still trying to do that, or?
I think so. For Banff, it's a little different because the shortage in housing. You have to work in town to be able to live in town. So you don't get people that own a place here but they work in Calgary. I think you get a little bit of that, a little bit more of that in Canmore. So, but I think it would be the other way around. I think a lot of people, maybe live in Canmore and commute to Calgary, just because that's where there's a lot more jobs, versus a smaller sort of tourist type town. So yeah, I think a lot of people maybe have been doing that, but because of this whole the outbreak and all that, it's people coming to visit town has definitely dropped pretty much down to zero, which, as bad as it is for tourism, it's obviously what we need to do to make it out of this as a town.
And has it seen a lot of decrease in like some really big local businesses? Maybe not more as like the touristy spots, but even like restaurants. That's big for you guys. Are y'all doing takeout? Are y'all still to do all that stuff? Or a lot of places like closed?
I think it's probably about 50-50. A lot of places did close, and have been closed, but a lot of places are still doing sort of takeout, delivery, that kind of thing, or they'll open for a couple days every week or every 2 weeks and do a whole bunch of delivery or a deal or whatever, and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's probably about 50-50 in terms of places that are still open and doing delivery, takeout, that kind of thing, versus places that just decided to completely shut down shop.
Now, do you have an idea on what like the Canadian government's doing to help out those businesses that had to shut down? I know the U.S. government has passed a couple of stimulus bills to kind of try to revitalize those small businesses. So is Canada doing something similar?
Yeah, so I haven't been honestly keeping up with too much of the news. I try to keep a little bit of it, but especially in those the past month or so, it just felt like everything was bad news every single day, and it was just not great for the mental health. So I sort of socially distanced myself from the news for a little while. But yeah,
Don't blame you.
there's the CERB package, which is similar to your guys' stimulus package. So that's for everybody that's either lost work or has a reduction in hours because of the coronavirus, or is taking care of somebody who's sick with it, and therefore can't go to work, that kind of thing. So I think that's like $2,000 a month. And then there's regular employment insurance, and then for small businesses, I think it was recently announced maybe there 75% rent. I don't know if it's a deferral or if it's forgiveness on the rent as a whole, for commercial landlords. So the question will be, does that get passed through to the tenants themselves? And you'd like to think that it does, but it doesn't always work out that way, which is too bad.
Well, kind of moving, I guess, to a lighter note of things. When COVID-19 is all said and done with, how do you think Canadians specifically will transition out of it? Do you think you'll see that spike, and do you think you'll see a spike in people being more friendly and almost just being thankful to be out and about? Do you think it'll be the same, more germaphobes, or all the above?
Yeah, I definitely think a little bit of all of the above. Like, I think we're going to come out of this. People will give everybody a little bit more space. Definitely in the cities, I think people will have maybe a little bit more of a little bit more respectful distance. But yeah, I'd like to think that people start getting back out, especially to a tourism-based town. After you've been cooped up in your house for who knows how long, to be able to get out and spend some time in just an incredible place. Hopefully, for the town, the economy, and everything. Once we can do that safely, I hope that's sort of how this changes things.
For sure. And
I know me and Cody will be glad to help out with that.
Yes.
Yeah, man. Gotta get you guys out here.
Dying to go back. Ready to go on some crazy hikes or something at this point. At this point, anything to get out of this, out of the house and out of just work, honestly. Anything else other than that. But what about you specifically? Anywhere you want to go, or a certain hike or something that you have your heart set on as soon as this is over with?
Nothing specific. I've been talking with my buddy that I climbed Aconcagua with, and we're thinking maybe if things start opening up later in the summer, that's still good mountaineering season, and maybe we can do some climbing out here. But yeah, no big objectives just yet. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's something I'd want to do, but I don't want to be booking plane tickets and sinking a bunch of money into planning an expedition when I don't know if I'm gonna have a job in 2 weeks.
Right.
So
That's smart. That's
but
fair enough.
yeah, stuff around here. I mean, it just even makes you want to get out into your own backyard a little bit more and do some climbing out here. So
For sure. And where you're located, do you just walk out and then boom, there's the valley and the mountains, or are you like more cooped away in like the woods area, or?
Yeah, we're sort of at the last street of residential, houses. So we're pretty close to the woods. There's trails right out off my back deck or whatever. But yeah, to be able to get a little bit further into the backcountry is hopefully, if it's a possibility, that's what I can't wait to do.
Sure.
Cody,
what's up?
Do you remember the trails that we hit when we were in Banff?
Like specifically?
Yeah.
Gosh. Not off the top of my head. Other than like Tunnel Mountain, we hung out there for a while, went all the way up. There's some stuff we did around, like, was it Bow Lake?
Bow Lake and Pado Lake. I think I was watching some of the Banff series on YouTube this afternoon.
Sweet.
So
Yeah.
trying to see where you guys have been and that kind of thing. So
Yeah, that's awesome. So Pado and Bow. A little bit of like Lake Louise area. Didn't go too crazy into it. Kind of wish we were able to actually do more, but we met some locals that are not local, actually Toronto locals. They were they vacationed there a lot, and they're really familiar with like Sunshine and a lot of the different skiing and hiking areas. And they said that's definitely something we missed out on, like doing more around like the Lake Louise area. But like they said, it was probably easier for the skiers because you could ski around different areas. But I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
I can't really remember where else specifically. Memory is blanking. I mean, we did the Yamnuska Wolf Dog Sanctuary. That was a blast. Really cool experience. I'll have to get back to you on that, DJ.
If two beginner hikers were to go out to Banff, what would be your first recommendation? Like, what trail would you suggest above all else?
Yeah, I mean, if you want something like relatively easy, getting up the Sunshine Meadows area is sort of the most approachable way to get up into the Alpine, because you take the gondola up and then you can just spend the afternoon hiking the Sunshine Meadows area. But then if you want something a little more involved, some of the scrambles just in town, like Cascade Mountain, which is, the big sort of picturesque mountain at the end of Banff Ave. It's a big day, big scramble, but you can get to some of that. It's, got incredible views of town and, the rest of the valley. So, I mean, there's kind of a little bit of everything, depending on what you want. And then obviously different seasons have, you can't do that kind of stuff in the winter, but you can do some other adventures.
Definitely gonna have to come back in the summertime. Definitely have to come back. I want to see the lakes not frozen next time. So
yeah, they won't be frozen, but they'll be packed full of people.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. Yeah, what was it? Moraine, because it's what, Moraine Lake or Lake Moraine is it?
Moraine Lake and Lake Louise are two of the, they're sort of, right there, and they're both very popular. It's a bit of a gong show in the summers. You got to get there at like between 6 in the morning kind of thing to be able to get a parking spot. So
wow,
it's kind of nice to be able to take a deep breath and not have that going on.
Sounds like we went there at the perfect time, Cody.
Because we did not
Yeah.
have any of those issues. There's like no one on the roads and everything, and we got blessed with like I said, 40, 45 degree weather to where.
Yeah, the weather. When we went, we couldn't have asked for a better week of weather. Like it had just snowed the day before we got there. So when we got up there, we didn't have any problem getting in. And then when we woke up in the morning, there was just, a couple feet of snow. Everything was white. It was beautiful. And every single day, for the next 3 days, it was low 50s, high 40s, mid 50s. So with the sun hitting you, it felt kind of hot actually. It melted the snow away. As the week went on, you saw kind of more and more green show up. And then we saw just enough green to know the place could be green. And then on the very last day we were there, it just blizzard again. So we got to see clear white snow, green, and a blizzard all within a week. It was perfect.
Yeah. That seems that's pretty common around here. You get, everything in even just a day. You get bluebird skies and then, tons of snow. And so, that's sort of just perfect springtime weather.
It's funny that a couple feet of snow is springtime weather.
Springtime definition is a little different out here.
I'm gonna ask a question that if our buddy Edgar potentially watches this, but I'm sure you've had the Rocky Mountain Bagel Company out there. I know there's a couple locations out there, and we absolutely loved it when we went. I'm trying to remember where specifically it was. Was there one in Banff, the town of Banff, or maybe just Canmore area? There's at least a couple. It was like Rocky Mountain Bagel Company.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any in Banff. I'm honestly not sure, but
the one we went to was in Canmore.
Yeah.
Have you ever had it?
That's good. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's just a great way to start the day. Good bagel, good food.
Most definitely.
It's
with
awesome.
Trying to remember specifically what Edgar got. I think he loved. We also went to this other place in the town of Banff specifically. It's right across the little waterway there, kind of close to the. It was before you start going up to the hill of the hot springs.
Right next to the post office, I think.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the one that I think about from the video. I honestly don't know the name. No, I don't know. I don't know the name of that spot.
We don't know the name, but we remember the bagel.
Yep.
Yeah.
Dude, well, if you watch some of our videos, that's awesome. Really does mean a lot. Is there anything specifically you wanted to ask us or interested about any of our trips or anything really you had or?
You can say that.
I guess. Well, just how's the film project doing, The Land of the Free? What's sort of
that's a great question.
On that.
Well, I'll count both of y'all asking me that, and then my dad just asked it the other day. So we got a good way through the rough draft because, as you know, we met you in August 2018, so well over a year and a half now, getting close to 2 years, and we have 13 hours of footage between both cameras, the drone. It was a lot. We spent 15 days on the road, going to just shy of 20 states, I'm not mistaken, and we're filming just about everything. And so we watched all the way through the footage 2 or 3 times because yes, we lived it, but we kind of had to make sure hey, how's the audio here? How's the visual here? Where there's going to be a need to be a voiceover? Where is this drone footage going to go through? So that was a very tedious job. And then we actually started to edit the rough draft. We have that little 30-second sneak peek that's on our personal Instagram, I think on our Facebook page. And then we have a rough minute and a half of what could be the beginning of the film. I think DJ and maybe one other person's seen it. I don't want to show it to anybody because we may change it up, and it's solid. It could be a teaser trailer, but all that being said, I was hoping to have the guys back so we could start working on it. I was loving the idea of releasing it on the 2-year anniversary, August 2020. And the reasons one of ours been pushed back so long is one of our directors goes to college out in Santa Cruz, California. So he's not even here most of the time. And then Spencer, good Lord, that boy's always traveling around doing video projects and stuff. So the struggle's been having everyone here at the same time. And the main thing is editing. So I mean, we have a good bit of the rough draft done. What we'd have to go back and do is basic, which I guess would be perfect with this whole quarantine phase, would be to go back to the rough draft, figure out where we need to have some like the sound mixing, throw in some music, because we were working with a lot of like different distant friends or relatives or people who knows this person through music, because you know it's copyright issues you got to worry about. But if you get a lot of like local or small artists, they'll be willing to, you know, easy way to share their work and go through and plug in all that stuff and then just pick a date. Because the original idea was to sell it to a streaming service, which I guess is legitimately perfect now because that's what everyone's doing now. No movie theaters everywhere, and everyone's watching the stream service. So maybe you're getting me more hyped to getting back to it, because I know Henry said he's coming back like next month in May. So from there on, I guess we'll just have to hide away for a couple of days and just work. So, but definitely wanting to get it out to you guys. Gives me goosebumps every time I talk about it. I haven't talked about it in a while, especially someone that we interviewed for that project. It was definitely a one of a kind experience, that's for certain. But I will say you were probably one of the easiest and most approachable of those that we asked, like to be a part of the project, if that means anything, because we only got turned away once, but some people were very, very hesitant.
Huh.
So
that's too bad.
Yeah, but other than that, it was everyone usually fell like in love with it right away, and they realized that hey, we're not just a bunch of like, you know, lack of personality professionals or something. We're just a bunch of young guys just like going around the country filming. So it's kind of a godsend to have people like you that were just like in these different areas that were like, oh yeah, sure, I'll do it, or had like a perfect like story to tell through it. So, but August 2020, what's up?
Sorry to mess up your plug.
No, you're good.
Going off of that, so, you know, me and Cody do a lot of our travels together or with a group of people, a travel party or whatever we have. Going off of how you were, you know, willing to be a part of that, interview, talk to them, all that kind of stuff. Do you think was that kind of like a skill set that you had prior to traveling on your own for 2 months? Was that something that you really developed during those 2 months of being on your own, being forced to interact with new people every single day just to keep your sanity, you know?
Yeah, I think it's definitely the latter there. It's spending 2 months, 2.5 months on the road. You know, you interact with people, you stay for a couple nights in town or whatever, and then you move on. So you definitely need to learn how to be able to have a conversation with people that you don't really know at all. And I think that was one of the more valuable parts of the trip. One of the things that I came out feeling a lot more comfortable in that sort of a setting.
I feel like you definitely kind of pick up on that trend, especially when you're in like a hostel, and you meet other singles who are by themselves, and very often they're very outgoing, talkative people. They're really, really good at just sparking up a conversation with a random person next to you. It's definitely a skill that's very useful.
Great at that. I'm a little more reserved, but it's just sort of takes, understanding that, the other person that's traveling by themselves is in the same boat. They're here to sort of experience and meet new people and that kind of thing. So, once you sort of have that realization, I guess you get maybe a little bit better at it. I'm still not super outgoing. Yeah, definitely more reserved kind of guy, but
What was your initial first reaction when we asked you to do a part of like a little piece for the film project? We're like, what are these guys doing? Like, were you thrown off by it, or like, oh, cool, people are talking to me?
I thought it was awesome. Yeah, I mean, like growing up, like when I was a lot younger, I always had this dream of buying an old like school bus, like one of the shorter ones, and renovating it out, building out, kitchen and, bunk beds or that kind of thing, and doing, across Canada, USA road trip type thing with a bunch of my buddies. So it was cool to see, you guys had, a similar idea there, and you actually followed through on it, piling all into a car and just hitting the road.
Well, it's crazy to know. I don't know if I mentioned this on that day, or definitely not now, but DJ and I actually did that before I did that the second time with those guys.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if I mentioned that, but which was funny. Our budget was still very, very cheap and next to none with those guys when we met you. But when we did it with DJ here, it was us two, and then 3 of our buddies, and it was roughly the same time, but way, 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 way less money. But definitely would recommend it regardless. I mean, I'd do it 100 more times. So maybe you have to fly to Virginia and get in the car with us and go on a trip for a couple of weeks one of these days. It's definitely a blast and a learning experience, and won't be by yourself this time.
Yeah, no, that'd be pretty sweet. I've never really spent too much time in sort of that part of the country too. I mean, my trip was mostly the west, but the sort of southeast and that sort of side of the country is, I've never been down there.
Awesome.
Pretty cool.
We'll have to make it happen. Anything else for us?
I guess, yeah. What are you guys thinking next? Do you have, some trips you guys are looking forward to doing, or that kind of projects?
Super near future. I think we're planning on going on a hike this weekend.
Nice.
Super duper near future.
Sanity.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Got to keep the sanity. Yeah, supposed to do a hike this weekend, and then look into
possibly another hike the following weekend.
Yep. So back-to-back hikes would be great because Deej and I are both lucky ones that can work still, like yourself. Unfortunately, it's going to and fro. The schedule hasn't really changed much. Definitely practicing the social distancing, and then things are much crazier and slower. But we haven't really done anything like we normally, because we were doing podcasts and trips and stuff every other weekend. So we've taken kind of like some time off. So it's gonna be good for the, like you said, the mental health to get back in the mountains. But no, it's funny you say that. I was actually supposed to leave for Alaska on this Thursday. I was taking my mother up. We're gonna go to Alaska and then Washington State and hit like.
I wasn't going on this trip.
No, he wasn't going on this one. That was going to be we're going to go see Olympic National Park in Washington for a couple of days, and then Denali National Park in Alaska. So really, really bummed about that. But we'll make up for it with a hike this weekend, and I can imagine that I'm hiking somewhere in Olympic National Park instead. But
we'll bring some flour and throw it over your head, so it's like.
We'll see what we can do. But no, I think other than that, I mean. We kind of had like a bunch of different like long weekend trips planned for the rest of the year. Hopefully they're gonna able to happen, like going to Florida to see our buddy in August.
Yeah, if you were to take a map of the U.S. and like throw a random dart at it, as long as it's on like from Colorado to the east, that's kind of like a day trip that we kind of want to do at some point.
Wow.
And then if you take like a world map and throw a dart at it, that's kind of like the next 5-year plan for us. Anywhere that kind of lands.
Yeah,
that's kind of our planning.
Yeah,
you guys have been doing a whole bunch of traveling in Europe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before this whole thing happened.
Yeah, we
did.
Go ahead, DJ.
Rattling off the places that we went to.
Okay, I'll go then. Well, our first trip was 2017, about a week and a half, 2 weeks to the Netherlands and Sweden. That was a blast. Went all around the countryside on the bike there, the Netherlands and Sweden. We kind of saw some, like we say, in the old town. Saw like the Drottningholm Palace, and then fast back to October, November. We took a 15-day trip to England, Scotland, Germany. Drove into Austria for a few moments just to say we went there. We were in Italy, and of course explored around the Vatican. But yeah, that 15 days was very, very wild. It's crazy. People say 15 days is 2 weeks and it goes by like that. But when you're traveling in another country, in multiple countries at that, what I kind of like to say, what we do is we like to live in that country or live within that culture for 3 to 4 days. Or wherever it may be, so you really we walk everywhere. If we have to take a subway or a train, weather permitting, or we're just that tired, we will. But we walked, miles and miles and miles. I wish I knew the total tally from that trip. Poor DJ was wiped by the end of it.
Berlin was insane.
Yes.
In Berlin, we got off a midnight train at the train station in Berlin, and then we ended up walking 10 miles.
Yeah, roughly.
How far was that?
It was like 10 or
Roughly 10 miles with a suitcase. Like with our suitcase. And it was a pain.
I mean,
We ended up walking to the airport,
yes.
which was a horrible idea.
Yeah, maybe that one's a taxi, but it's a good way to see a city.
It is.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good way because we ended up walking down, random neighborhoods in Berlin. We kind of got to see a different side of it than just the main city aspect of it. We saw a few like little soccer fields and like a school building and all that, which is really cool to see.
We saw like different, a less tourism filled area. We took a wrong turn and went through that warehouse and thought we saw a shortcut, but it was actually the riverway there. So we had to turn around and sneak out before anyone saw us. So that was kind of awkward. But you miss all.
We did some light trespassing in Berlin.
Yeah, may have just admitted to it, but hey, it's all right. Well, we live and we learn. But I mean, you miss all that if you take a bus or a train everywhere. It was definitely something I would recommend. Because we walked all around Rome, walked all around Berlin, London, Edinburgh, Glasgow. I mean, it was just a phenomenal time. We love interacting with the locals. We obviously stay at hostels most of the time, except London. So we have a lot of experience with that. Just meet new people. I mean, we've got friends from all over just from doing that. And I'm sure you have experience with the hostel living. It's definitely a one of a kind experience, and I can't say I recommend it to everyone because it's definitely for a special breed of people. But it's definitely one of my top ways to travel, just for the experience and the connections. But I guess the next big idea that we had was Tokyo in 2021. So
we have kind of an idea because I remember, I think it went down roughly like this, where we were in Scotland or Germany, and I think Cody said, hey, we're kind of close to being world travelers, right? And it was like, wait, we've only kind of really been to Western countries. We've only really seen the same thing in a couple different ways, So the next place that we want to go is somewhere that's not either, the North America or, like
modern
England. Yeah. So we want to do an Asian country, and Japan just really screams out to both of us. We're super excited for that place. And then Australia. I know we definitely want to hit Australia as well.
Absolutely.
That's sweet. Yeah, and Australia. Yeah, someplace that I've always wanted to go. I think it'd be pretty cool. Not many mountains there, but definitely some cool stuff to see.
Not many mountains, but plenty of places to walk.
Yeah.
Very true. But I'd love to take on the Outback or something. I heard it's not something to take lightly, but I feel like if we had like a good travel party to go with or something, maybe not a guy, but like a good travel party, team up. I mean, we've also thought New Zealand because we're big Lord of the Rings fans, and we'll love to see all the film locations, and hey, plenty of hiking and climbing there for you. So,
yeah. And it's just perfect for a road trip from the North Island down to the South. You know, you can spend a ton of time on the road there driving and see a lot. So, yeah, New Zealand would be pretty cool, especially since I don't know if you guys got the same sense, but for me, like riding on the motorcycle in the desert, it just you just got that sort of sense of dread almost, that it's like, oh, people aren't supposed to live here. So I think the Outback is.
I remember when we made a realization going across the desert where somehow magically we kept almost running out of gas by the time we got to the next town. And then we realized that the towns are put there because that's the day's journey. Like that's how far you can go before your tank runs out. So there has to be a town there.
Yes.
There's nothing in between.
It's a little different game on a motorcycle with a tiny little tank. So
yeah,
it's a little
sure.
scarier there.
Yeah, because we can get 400 or 500 miles, miles on a tank, and you get like 100, 120, if that.
Yeah, 200 kilometers. So.
Did you carry around like a gas tank or like a gas can with you, or?
I didn't have one. I should have. That would have been smart, but. Yeah, I just every time you see some gas, you gotta fill up when you're in the desert like that, or
yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
What desert did you drive across or spend a lot of time in when you were? I mean, I know Moab is relatively deserty, but
Yeah, so you spent some time in Utah, Arizona, but mostly for me it was interior California. I took the coast down to just north of LA and then cut across the state with the goal of going to Death Valley, Joshua Tree, but obviously everything was on fire, so
that's right.
had to audible out on that. But yeah, just I mean it's just so hot. It's not. I don't know. I like the mountains a little more.
Makes complete sense. Yeah, it's funny you say that because I totally forgot about that. Because around then it's when we were heading westward, and then we got to Sequoia National Park, and we were on top of Morro Rock. It's like one of the most northernmost peaks that's easily accessible, but you can see like a full 360 of the park. And if you look westward to like where you enter in the park into the valley there, it was very, very hazy. And then Yosemite the next day was very, very hazy as well. So when you look through like the tunnel view there, I mean, it was already dry season, so there was no waterfall from like the Yosemite Falls or the large one or the smaller. So that was unfortunate, but it was also hazy. So I totally forgot about all that. Everything was on fire there for like a month.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys were maybe there. I guess it would have been a little bit later than I was in Yosemite, but when I was there, it was the valley was completely shut down. I was able to camp, but up in the meadows, and you couldn't even drive through the park into the valley, which was too bad. That's a place I really want to see is Yosemite Valley. It's just so incredible.
It's insane.
Yeah, so that's sort of one of the big regrets of the trip was that it was unfortunately all smoked in. So I'll have to go back. Too bad.
For sure.
That's the attitude to have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the only attitude I have, especially during a pandemic. That's what I keep telling myself, and DJ's had to help me out with, because it's definitely been a mental game. That's for sure.
Yeah. It's you'll get it next time type mentality. Yeah.
Yep. Well, Thompson, I appreciate you doing this, man. I don't want to. I know it's 9:16 here, 7:16 back your way, so I'm sure you might be either getting hungry or want to wind down for the night. But I greatly appreciate you doing this, man. It's good to catch up and have you on the podcast.
Yeah, man, this has been great. It's good to talk to human beings. It's always a great time like this. So, thank you guys for having me on.
For sure.
Absolutely,
man.
it was awesome to meet you, Thompson.
Yeah, nice to meet you too, GJ.
For sure, and hopefully when the pandemic's all said and done, you can make it East Coast bound one of these months or days, and then we can make it our way back out to Banff sometime. I would absolutely love it, and you're always welcome here too. So.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. That'd be awesome.
Awesome.
Definitely start planning something.
Sweet. DJ, that's a wrap.
Bye.